glad you're tuned in. And as always, I have a great show for you today. I have a top-notch guest, but before we get to that, let me remind you of the new search engine I've been talking to you about, Luxel. Listen, people who are tuned into the Adrienne Ross Show, you know how some of these search engines are biased. Well, Luxel eliminates search engine bias, protects your privacy in a way that matters. And I want you to check out this message from the Luxel spokesperson.
Search engines should be a place for you to discover the world and make your own decisions about what you find. That's why Luxel is improving your access to information. The new search engine eliminates search engine bias that gets in the way of your searches. You can filter results to lean right or left, and from there you can sort it by Luxel's algorithm, alphabetically, and by freshness. Plus, there is no price for privacy. Luxel is free and doesn't track you or sell your data. So check out Luxel. That's LUXXLE.com and take control of your searches.
All right, everybody. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but I can't encourage you enough. Luxel.com. Luxel.com. And also, I want to remind you about We the People. We the People. I want you to go to www.wethepeopleofmissouri.org. Okay, We the People of Cape Girardeau County is a nonpartisan, community-based grassroots organization that functions as a liberty watchdog group at the local level. You need to check out We the People, you local folks. All right, August 29th is the next meeting, and the guest speaker is Stacy Shore. The topic, programming American children one iPad at a time. And We the People wants to say, please join us August 29th, 5 p.m. That's their invitation, August 29th, 5 p.m. at Delmonico's in Jackson. You local people know where that is. Why? To learn how to help advance true solutions in moving forward to restore Missouri public education and stop buying into the narrative of school choice and open enrollment. That's going to be interesting. I'm very curious about what Stacy has to say. I intend to be there, God willing. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the legislature have broken our system. Now it is time that local control and expertise restore it. Come and learn how your tax dollars are being spent to corrupt the innocence of the most innocent. That's from We the People of Cape Girardeau County. That sounds really good. As a person who is invested in children, who cares about children, who was a teacher of children, I definitely plan to be there. So God willing, I will. I would love for you to come up and say hello. Okay, this is August 29th at Delmonico's in Jackson, Missouri at 5 p.m. Stacy Shore. www.wethepeopleofmissouri.org. You can also email at wtpcapecountymo@gmail.com. Find them on YouTube and Facebook. They're simply called We the People of Cape Girardeau. All right, so now let's get into today's episode. Today's show is unlike any show I've ever done. I want to talk a little bit about something I really don't talk to a lot of people about, and that is my number one pet peeve. And then after I talk about it, I'm going to have a guest, as I mentioned, and she's going to take the conversation in a different direction, though it really does apply to this pet peeve of mine. So, Adrienne, what is your pet peeve? First of all, let me say this. I'm all about communication, right? I mean, you just see that, right? Adrienne Ross Communications, right? My profession has been as a teacher. I am a speaker. I am a writer. So communication is extremely important to me. And I absolutely cannot stand poor communication. Now, a lot of times when you say that, because people know your background, they know that you were a teacher, especially an English teacher as I was, people tend to get a little bit like uncomfortable. I've had people say things if they text something, or if they write a letter, or if they even talking. A lot of times people are like, I gotta watch my grammar because I'm talking to an English teacher. Let me make this clear. That's not really what I'm talking about when I say that my pet peeve is related to communication. I'm not sitting there looking at a text, trying to find mistakes. I'm not looking at your letter with a red pen and marking it up and all that stuff. I'm not listening to you for you to get the wrong verb and all that. That's not what I do. I notice what I notice, but I don't go out of my way to do that. So that's really not what I'm talking about. Now, if your grammar is all jacked up and your spelling is all jacked up, then of course, it affects the ability to communicate because it affects the ability for a person to understand you. But that's really not what I'm talking about. Let me say this. I am a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, and coach. And if you know anything about John Maxwell, you know that he is regarded as the #1 leadership expert in the world, okay? And one of his best-selling books is called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. Everyone communicates, few connect. And far be it from me to disagree with the great John Maxwell. But I, several years ago, turned that around. And you'll hear me say things like, few people communicate, fewer connect, okay? Because everyone doesn't communicate, you know? They really don't. And that's the pet peeve. It's not about spelling. It's not about grammar. It's not about that. It's about a lack of communication, period. Like ignoring people. That is my #1 pet peeve. I can't stand being ignored. Let me explain, okay? Now, I believe that 95% of the time, there is no excuse for ignoring people. You know, like sometimes we forget to respond to an email or text and things like that, you know, return a call. You know, we're human. But this is not like people just forgetting. Like people these days are just about ignoring people. 95% of the time, there's absolutely no excuse. And that might, you know, it might even be more than that. But there's hardly an excuse to ignore someone. And so when I'm big on communication and it just, like I said, I've never done a show where I'm just like venting about a pet peeve, but I have to do this because being able to communicate is so important. Being able to communicate effectively is important. Being able to write well and all that stuff, those things are important. But what's even more important is just acknowledging people. And I connect giving people a response to leadership. A leader is able to say, so sometimes you have to say no. And sometimes you just have to respond no. And some people think, well, if I just ignore people, then they get the message. Well, that doesn't work because there are too many opportunities for people to have missed an email or to have forgotten a text or, you know, whatever. I don't know by non-response that you're saying no. Be a leader and just say no. So if someone proposes something and you're not interested or it doesn't fit your schedule or whatever, a leader has to have the confidence to say, you know, I got your request, or I received your voicemail, or whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, this doesn't align with where I am right now, or it doesn't fit my schedule, or, you know, maybe somewhere down the line or whatever. But I think that people are weak. And so instead of having strength and just being open with people, then people just ignore other people. And #1, like I said, that's just poor leadership. And it speaks about that, your leadership. It speaks about character to a certain extent as well, I believe. And why do I say that? Because when you ignore people, you're basically saying, if you're not just weak, you're saying that you're not even worth a response. You're not even worth that. And that it's just not cool, right? And so it grates on me. That is my number one pet peeve. Again, I love communication, and no communication is the highest form of disrespect, I feel. And it's also an example of just poor leadership. But there are times when people should be ignored. Like I said, there's probably 5% of the time where people don't deserve a response. And I'll let me explain what I mean by that. If somebody is harassing you repeatedly, someone who is just disrespectful and just being hateful towards you, then, at times you just got to cut folks off and you don't say anything. You just don't respond. There's a situation on social media. There's someone who followed me on Instagram. I'm just giving you an example of a time I feel it's appropriate to ignore someone. So there's someone on social media. I was going to do a podcast episode, a Q&A. So I asked people to submit questions that I would answer. And so if people submitted questions, I let them know that I received your questions. I'm adding it to the list of questions. And then when I do that episode, I will address your questions. So someone had followed me. I didn't follow him, but he asked the question. And so I responded to him what I said, that I added your question. And then when I do the episode, you'll hear me address your question. And so when you don't follow someone, if they send you a message, once you respond, then you can communicate back and forth. And so since I wanted to be respectful and let him know that I got his question, I responded. And so now we can go back and forth. And if this man began to send me messages, and the messages were like he was battling me on things that I would post or things that I would say. And it was like he just wanted to fight. Now, if he's listening now, please don't take this disrespectfully, because I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm using this as an example. And so, if you're listening or watching, now you understand why I'm not responding. But in any case, it was like a pushback on what I had to say. I don't mind pushback, but it was like relentless. So I respond again, and there was like another thing. It was becoming like an argument over ridiculous stuff that was just, it was not necessary. And so no matter what I said, you come back with something else, or you want to send me something else to look at or whatever. So finally, when I was done with the back and forth nonsense, again, not trying to be rude, but that's just how I saw it. And he wouldn't receive what I was saying, or you, if he's listening, wouldn't receive what I was saying, but you just seemed like you just wanted to argue and push your point. I got too much to do for that. And I don't know you. So it's just too much of an investment that's just not worth it to me, So it was back and forth. And finally, I just stopped responding. But messages still come. So now when the messages come from him, which he's still sending, or sending a reel or whatever on Instagram, I don't even open them. I just click delete. I click delete. So in that case, I'm ignoring him. But like I said, 95% of the time, there's no reason to ignore people. But in this situation where I don't know you, where I'm investing this energy, where you're coming at me and then coming at me and wanting to school me and all that stuff, and not respecting that this is how I feel about certain things, and you just want to keep going, and I don't even know you, to me, that's a 5% example of a reason to ignore someone, because you're wasting my time. And I'm not willing to give that much time to someone I really don't know, right? I don't know at all. So there's an example. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to this man, but I don't open his stuff anymore. I simply hit delete. I'm not that interested, a loved one, someone I know, someone I have a relationship with, that's a whole different story, right? We can work through those things, and it's worth my time to do so. That's not worth my time. So, that's an example of a time to ignore people. But most of the time, there really is no reason to ignore people, especially in the day and age we're living in. It's too easy to respond. It's too easy to hit an emoji. It's too easy to show respect for people. And I'm not saying that you got to be sitting there hitting emojis all day and you have to respond to everything that they post on social media. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in communication where a response is warranted and there's no response. And let me give you another example. Now, I know that the Adrienne Ross Show is no huge podcast and I'm not a huge name or anything like that, but I do know that what I do is valuable. I believe I'm called to do this, and so I do it. And not being a big name, I knew this was a long shot, but I wanted to interview presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. And you hear people talk about how he'll go anywhere. He's going places that other candidates aren't going. And I thought, well, hey, maybe he'll come on the Adrienne Ross Show. So I just took a stab at it, right? This is what everyone who wants to be a voice and wants to have an opportunity to sit and speak with people and share views with the public. This is what we do. You have to take a step, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm nobody, right? Nobody's going to, respond to me. No, you have to do that. So I'm just like that, right? So I reached out via Instagram. I did an Instagram direct message to Vivek Ramaswamy, and I said who I was, said what I do, etc. And I made that request to be able to interview the candidate. I was blown away when I got a response, because again, people don't always respond, especially people who are, bigger name people. They don't always respond, especially for stuff like this. But I received the response. I received a response in my inbox that said that all press inquiries should go to, and it gave me the email to do that. And I said, thank you. I was very thankful. And I went to email and I sent the email. I said who I was and again, what I do, and that I had watched an interview with Ramaswamy, and I was very intrigued, and I would love for my audience to hear from him, because I had some direct questions that I wanted to ask him. So I sent the email, never got a response. So I waited 2 weeks. And at this point, again, my pet peeve is being ignored. I know he's busy, right? And so but you don't know, like, does no response, does being ignored mean that we got your response, we're considering it, we'll get back to you? Or does it mean that it's a no, like they don't respond if they're not interested? You don't know, which is one of the problems with the poor communication, because I don't know. I don't know if no response means no. I don't know if you got a million emails and you didn't get to it. I don't know what no response means. So I waited 2 weeks and I sent a follow-up email, and I said, is it your policy not to respond if your schedule doesn't allow a particular interview, or if you're not interested? Or should I expect a response either way? No response. And it's been some time now since that happened. And so, again, I understand folks are busy. I understand you're running for president. I get all that. But I should be somebody's communication director. If it takes a communications director to understand that you're running a campaign, you respond and give me an email to make my request. How difficult is it to have an automatic reply that simply said, we regular people who are not running businesses and running for president, even if you're going to be out of the office or if you're on vacation or whatever, we have these automatic responses that people use that say something. So if you're running for president, to me, it should be really simple to simply, as soon as that email comes through, I should have gotten a response, period, that says, got it. We got your request, we got your email. And as you can guess, we get tons of requests for the candidate to be on different shows or to give a statement or whatever. And unfortunately, there are not enough hours in the day to respond to everyone, but we want you to know we got it. We will review it. And if the candidate has an opportunity to do what you're requesting, then you will hear back from us. But please know that you've been seen and you've been heard, and it's under consideration. But understand, we simply cannot respond to every individual request, but you will hear from us if this is doable. How difficult is that? But no response at all, no automatic response, and then no response when I followed up. And you want me to vote for you. I'm like, that to me says something. And again, some of you are thinking, you're like, people don't know who you are. Like, why would he give you the time of day? It's not about me. It's about effective communication. It's about valuing people. It's about not ignoring people. And no way do I expect a presidential candidate to answer every single thing. But I do expect that you, especially you're a young candidate, right? That's part of your appeal. That's part of what you're putting forth. And that's, that's something you're bringing to the table. You're going on to college campuses and things which other people aren't doing. You're doing those kinds of things. You ought to know then how technology works. You ought to know that it's very simple to have an automatic response so that no one is ignored. You don't have to do anything except set it up. So for you to respond the first time, I applaud you. That's wonderful. On a social media platform where when people don't follow you, they often don't even see your messages. But you responded there. You told me to go and send that press inquiry. Then you don't respond to that. And then after I send another follow-up, you still don't respond. Still no automatic response. But you're going out asking people to vote for you. Again, to me, poor communication is poor leadership. And so I'm not sure that you really expect me to vote for you if you can't do me the decency of a response. And if you didn't give me a personal response, once again, there are automatic responses that if you got the right writer who can phrase things in such a way that people do not feel that they're not valued while you're asking for them to support what you want to bring to the country. Number one, if you want to do anything for the country, is you need to communicate. You need to be able to communicate. So that's where I stand at. This is no dig on Vivek Ramaswamy. I would still love to have him on the Adrienne Ross show. I don't even need a whole lot of his time, but there are some questions that I would love to ask him, and that I know that those of you who tune in would also love to hear his response to. So that's still out there, but that's an example of what I'm talking about in terms of communication, in particular, ignoring people. 95% of the time, no excuse. And this is one of those times. No excuse. Too easy to communicate. It is my absolute pet peeve. I can handle a no. Easy. I can handle a yes. Easy. I can handle criticism. Easy. I like to be real with people, but to be ignored to me is the ultimate disrespect. And I think that we have to work on that. It's not a deal breaker in terms of friendships with people, but I think it should be a source of conversation because communication is so important. And some people just don't communicate. They don't communicate well, and some don't communicate at all. Like I said, not to say that the John Maxwell is incorrect, because he's the John Maxwell, but I really think everyone does not communicate. Now, some people, of course, will say no response is communication. Yeah, but it's still ignoring people. And it's just something that I think we need to work on. And I feel like we've gotten worse in communication overall as time has gone on. And the coronavirus situation didn't help any. And I will get more into that with my guest, because I have a high caliber guest with us today, and I can't wait. She's not gonna be talking about my pet peeve. We're not gonna just hang out there on my pet peeve, because I don't want this to be a negative thing. I'm just sharing something that I think is absolutely valuable. And I think every one of us has to examine ourselves and say, do I value people? Do I value people enough to communicate with them, not to ignore them, but also to communicate in a way that connects with them. And that's something that our guest is really, really good at. And you're going to be so glad that you're in here, hanging in here today, so that you can hear what she has to say about communication. So, having said that, and getting past the pet peeve into the next step, I am so excited that I get to introduce you to my guest. So here we go. Well, I'm honored to have as my guest today, Regina Bryan. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Regina, I consider you a communications expert. Okay. Yes. So as I was thinking about talking about communication today, you are the guest that I wanted to have on. So I'm so delighted that this fit in your schedule and that we could make this happen. Welcome to the Adrienne Ross Show, Regina.
I'm honored to be here, Adrienne. Thank you so much.
Yes, the honor is all mine. Now, look, I already told everyone what a high caliber guest you are, but I want them to know details about you. So let me give those details to them. All right. As the daughter of a 30-year Navy veteran, Regina learned early in life the value of adaptability, service, and connection. During her 10-year career with Keller Williams Realty, Regina was best known for teaching personal growth and communication classes while wholeheartedly living out the KW values, including creating a culture where no one wants to leave. As a result, she was twice awarded the prestigious Office Culture Award and named a Southeast Region Culture Ambassador. Her time at KW shined a light on her love of people and speaking. It also unleashed her natural superpower of connecting. She took the inevitable next step and joined Toastmasters. In 2013, in front of 400 people, Regina competed as one of 6 finalists in the international speaking competition for the entire state of Georgia. From there, the call grew louder. In 2015, Regina became a John Maxwell coach and consultant. Just 3 years later, she was selected as one of the Maxwell DISC method faculty. Regina's mission has become clear: to boldly reconnect others to the best in themselves, others, and life. She accomplishes this through a wide range of interactive and dynamic personal growth workshops, including her signature DISC presentation, Emotional Intelligence Masterclass, and the Art of Connecting seminar. Regina's reach has widened, serving as the host of the Women of Empowered Living and Real Life on the Empowered Living Facebook page, which boasts 2.3 million followers. I was a guest on that before.
Sure.
Yeah. When Regina isn't serving her clients, we can find her home in Atlanta with her husband, Roger, playing piano or working with the nonprofit nearest to her heart, Cares for Kids. When they aren't traveling, they are focused restaurateurs as the owners of a local Riverside pizza franchise. Oh my goodness. I said, I wanted them to know what a high caliber this is. This is like from A to Z with you. Pizza?
Pizza, yes. We own a pizza business here in Atlanta, a local franchise that's only in this area. And we have a store that we've had for, 15 years. And it's about 7 miles from our house. And my husband does that in addition to being an AT&T business analyst. So,
wow, you've got a lot of coals in the fire, as they say.
we're very fortunate, Adrienne, that we've never had to roll up our sleeves and work in the store. I mean, we did in the beginning to learn the ropes. They don't want the 2 of us in the store. Roger and I belong, let me tell you, we don't belong working in the store. But it's been a pleasure and such an honor to own that little pizza business right here in our community. So yeah.
Yes, I love it. And you and I have a lot in common. As people who pay attention to the Adrienne Ross Show know, I am John Maxwell certified as well. I was also a member of Toastmasters at one time, and you and I both love communication, So I've been ranting on here today, Regina, about my pet peeve. Which is poor communication, right?
Yikes.
But really, when I say that, I mean no communication, like folks just ignoring folks. And so as members of the John Maxwell team, you're well ahead of me there. But one thing we both know, John Maxwell has a book about it. everyone communicates, few connect. Now, I can't really disagree with the John Maxwell, but I say few people communicate, fewer people connect. All right. So I already got into that, and I gave my word that we're not going to stay on my pet peeve, But Regina, there are people who truly wish to communicate better, and it's so important. So I'm just going to ask you, how important is communication and why?
It's almost everything, Adrienne. I mean, our relationships cannot survive. My husband and I, we have a business that can't survive without good communication. Marriages cannot, parent-child, any relationship worth honoring, worth having, cannot survive unless they have a good stream of back and forth communication. And I'm like you, Adrienne, I think that's why we kind of met and connected. We love talking about communication. We love the tool disc, but we recognize that great communication is hard to come by, isn't it?
It is extremely hard to come by. And I got to ask, because like I said, you are the communications expert up in here. So I have to ask, why are we so bad at it?
I think we've progressively gotten worse as a culture. And I don't want to blame technology, because I love technology. Technology allows you and I to be here together in 2 different states, 2 different cities, and do this. So technology, I love my iPhone, everything. But I think that we've gotten away from each other more. And my stepson's been in town, and he's in his early 30s. And it's like there's another generation that's coming up that's really going to have a hard time finding their way in communication.
Yeah.
I think that communication just trips people up, because sometimes I think we don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. And sometimes we don't know until the rear view, until it's behind us, how important it was that we needed the conversations that we needed to have. And I was talking to a coaching client recently, and everything that was happening in his business that we were talking about, the challenges, all stemmed from communication.
I believe it.
Every one of it. Every time we looked at anything, it was a communication. And a lot of it, and it was so great, because he was discovering, as we were having this conversation, that he didn't set proper expectations. And I think that is just huge, that we as people don't really set proper expectations. And he could find the holes in that throughout his business. It was mind blowing, every aha that he was getting around. Why didn't I say that at first? Why didn't I have that conversation? Why didn't I circle back to that person? Right. And life is going very fast, because everybody's busy. And I hate that word. We need to have a show about that, Adrienne.
Yeah.
Everybody's busy, and there's a lot of technology, and we've allowed that to get in our way.
Yes.
And it's causing some damage that doesn't have to be that way. But we have to take the bull by the horns and decide that conversations, and really people, are important enough that conversation should be important.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there when you said people, because this is what I believe. If you don't truly value people, you will never invest in proper communication, because you don't care.
That's so true. And even the client that I was speaking with, I've known him for a while. I know he has a great love of people. And you're right, there's that. And then there was this, things were happening fast. Things were happening fast and furious. And I didn't make this happen. I didn't make time for this conversation. And then we talked about one of our favorite books. He and I share a passion for this book, Fierce Conversations. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about, just like you and I, the importance of communication. Yeah. And I think when you make that a high priority, what you're going to start to see for everybody that's listening, when communication becomes a high priority and connecting, mm-hmm. a lot of those problems start to go away.
Yeah. You said something there when you said, looking at different things, all the problems stemmed from an issue of communication. If ever I want to go in, and you want to go into a business, or you want to go into a church, and you're offering training, a leadership training, for example, you may give out a survey, or you ask the question of the lead person, and you'll say, what's an area you really want me to focus on? Inevitably, the answer, whether it's a church, whether it's a business, whether it's a school, doesn't matter. Communication. That's what people desire. You think about employers, they'll talk about the kids coming through college, the soft skill that is lacking? Communication.
You said a mouthful with that. That's
Mhm.
exactly right. Every business, every team, small business, corporate America, it is all about communication and the lack thereof.
Yeah.
So it's either the sloppy conversations where we're not setting great expectations, we're not telling the full truth, not that
Mhm.
people are intending to lie, just missing pieces. So it's
Mhm.
either those types of sloppy conversations or not having them. It's the missing conversations.
Yes, yes. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself as a communicator?
I would give myself an 8 or a 9. Let's
That's
say
really good. Would you say that it's natural for you? You were always a great communicator, or you developed that?
I would say largely developed,
Mhm.
just because I know as a kid I was terribly shy.
Mhm.
I think that even though, Adrienne, I think this is a similarity you and I have. I think there's some natural communication there. You have this radio show. I do some things on Facebook. We have a natural just slant towards
Yeah.
communication. We like it.
Yeah.
But that's really not enough, as you know.
Mhm.
We had to develop that in a lot of ways. And whether you're developing it to use it on a platform or just in your everyday life, I would say one of the biggest things that I've done to improve my life is to improve my level of communication and then connection.
Mhm.
That's been, I think Warren Buffett says this too. He's like, the number one thing, and this is one of the richest men ever. One
Mhm.
of the number one things that we can do to improve our lives is to become better communicators. Warren Buffett says that.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely important. So it sounds to me that the person who says, because you hear that, I'm just not a good communicator. It sounds to me like you're saying there really is no excuse. You can get better. It may not be as natural, right?
Right.
But you can improve.
You can improve. There's so
Mhm.
many tools out there. When you think of what's on the internet at no cost, think of
Mhm.
the YouTube
Yeah,
videos. And then
yeah,
people like you and I that love to do this, as this is our passion that we do for a living. When
yes.
we go into organizations, churches, and businesses, and we get to have the pleasure of helping people develop themselves as communicators. And that connection piece, when you're talking about the value of people and going beyond communication to really connect with people, to me, that's where it's really at. Yes, it's the words, of course, but it's that connection piece. How am I really connecting with other people?
And that's exactly why I wanted to have you here today, because I want to know, what is the link between communication and connection that you spend a whole lot of time emphasizing, right? That
Right?
connection. And we already said, if you don't care about people, you're not going to make that investment, right? Or if you just think it's a hopeless cause, you're not going to make that investment. But there's a reason why John Maxwell connects communication with connecting with people, right? And there's a reason why your career really is committed to that, correct?
I'm totally just committed to that idea of connection
Mhm.
and how we can become better connectors to ourselves. Because I think there's the component of, am I connected to me? That's a little deeper. And then I think there's that component of connecting to other people, moving past communication. Now, Adrienne, you know this. Communication is just us here exchanging information.
Yeah.
But if I want to connect with people, it's because I see you. I want to connect with you because I see value in you. And I want to be able to speak to you in such a way that we can relate, and it increases my influence with you, increases my relatability with you. And
Yes.
that's where you have to invest that extra effort, that energy. Because in John's book, he talks about how, connectors bring energy. And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
need to take that leap from communication to connection. That's one of the things we need, is that energy, that value, that
Yes.
love.
Listen to you talk. I'm thinking about when I was in grad school, my career, my profession. I'm an editor now, but for almost 20 years, I was a teacher, an English teacher. And I remember in grad school, a course where we had to read a book that was called I Won't Learn From You. All
Mhm.
these years later, I still remember that, because we tend to see students who are failing and we think they can't learn. But there's a conscious decision by some that they will not learn from certain people because they're not connected. And so they immediately shut you off. So whatever you call communication isn't getting back and forth at all. So, yeah. All right. So one avenue you use, as you've already mentioned, and that I've used, is a method called DISC.
Yes.
I want you to talk about DISC because when I became DISC certified, it was your training video that I watched. Okay. And when it's time to do another workshop, it's your training video I go back to and I watch again and again because it's that good. You talk about energy. It's not only facts. It's not only the tenets of DISC. It's the energy. So today, I really want you to discuss what DISC is, DISC. What is it? And how has it proven itself to be effective to make people better communicators?
You know, Adrienne, I have to laugh just for a second because you talk about my training that I did for the John Maxwell team, now Maxwell Leadership. You know, I was just honored to be selected one of the faculty members when they rolled out DISC for Maxwell Leadership in 2018. And we had to do these workshops. So we all gathered in Florida. And I remember thinking, just getting stage fright almost for a moment and thinking, I don't even know what to say at this point because, you know, there's these people that we care about, you know, there's Deb and Dan and Bridget and others in the room. And I'm thinking, and so, so my go-to strategies is if I'm a little nervous to bring more energy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what saved the day in that. So that's just one of those little sidebar tips that in that moment, I'm there with people that I respect and admire. And I'm giving the presentation for the team to be part of the training program. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, you know, bring that extra energy sometimes. So when we're nervous and to, you know, bridge that gap, I think about the people that I'm serving, team members, and I thought about bringing extra energy. And that really does help me calm down. Yep. So that's the sidebar communication tip, because I always remember that moment being in that room, recording that training and thinking how nervous I was. And I thought, wait a minute, this is for all the team members that we're going to serve.
That's right.
And if I bring that great energy, that's going to help me focus less on being nervous, and it really works. And I focus on all the team members. I didn't even know you at that time.
That's right. Yeah.
All the team members that this might serve in some way. So thanks for saying that.
And you did it. You did a wonderful, wonderful job. Like I said, it's my go-to. Now, DISC is it's wide ranging. And you do workshops on that. We know we can spend hours on DISC. And I'm asking you to do almost what's impossible, is to concisely give everyone an understanding of DISC and why it is so popular and so effective. Tell us about DISC.
Well, DISC is a model of human behavior. It's a way for us to understand and explain some of our natural personality wiring. And it goes back, Adrienne, it's based on the work of Dr. William Marston. And as a fun fact, you know, he developed the lie detector and Wonder Woman. So back in the late 1920s, he wrote a book called The Emotions of Normal People. And he put together these ideas and this theory that human behavior could be categorized into these four distinct categories, D, I, S, and C.
Yes.
And D is dominance, I is influence, S is steadiness, C is conscientious. I mean, the words change maybe a little bit depending upon the company that offers DISC, but that's the general idea. And each of us, we're a blend of all four. And however, one or two usually are more predominant, more pronounced in us. And these are the predictable patterns of behavior that we can use to kind of say, I think this person is naturally a D or an I or an S or a C. And it's just a fun way, because when you learn that, like Adrienne, you and I have an I style personality.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to connect with other I's. But the point of us understanding DISC is so I can connect with every style. That D is that dominant style. These are the people that are brief, direct to the point. Don't keep them waiting. They got things to do, people to see.
It might hurt your feelings every once in a while too.
They might hurt your feelings. I always warn I love my D friends because they are results oriented. They are driven to accomplish things, and we need them in our lives and on our teams. I warn them though, do not leave bodies by the side of the road. They can just be in their own world trying to get something done. And
Yes.
it's typically not intentional. Sometimes Ds just don't know they're even being a D. They're so goal oriented.
Mhm.
And that next style is an I style that you and I have a lot of I in us. That's the outgoing personality. I mean, they're fun, they're friendly. These are the people that the influencers, persuasive, charming types that love to talk, love to tell stories. The connection point is people. And I mean, we can be very dangerous if we're not careful, because we can kind of shut other people out from talking. And I have to tell you, Adrienne, when I first was DISC certified with another company way back in 2015, I remember doing 2-day certification all day for 2 days. We had a great trainer. He was wonderful. And my style kept coming up ID. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be an I. These people are a disaster. They don't let other people talk, and they can be superficial. And I was talking to our trainer on the break, and I said, I'm not loving this I style. All my assessments keep telling me I'm an I, all the training you're doing, but I'm not loving that. And he was so great in that moment, and asked me questions about why I wanted to be a coach and why I wanted to be a speaker. And he said that I style lends itself naturally to do those things. Even though any style can be a great coach and speaker, that I style was so natural. So it helped me really embrace my style.
Yeah.
That conversation helped me tremendously. And then there's that S style. These are the steady, sweet, supportive friends. I mean, they are loyal. They are great team people. They're just beautiful folks. And that actually now I'm an IS. I was an ID. And then years later, just to throw that out there, that your styles can change.
Yeah. Yes.
So I went from ID to IS. And, S's are that steady. Those are the people that you want to, they're the supportive types that will wrap you up in hard times and will be there for you. We don't want them to be doormats. They sometimes can be a little too quiet and not share everything. And so that's something they've got to watch out for, is not being a doormat, not speaking up. They've got these wonderful personalities. And then there's that C type, that conscientious, analytical, fact finder. These are the detail oriented folks who are just on it. Very factual, very analytical. My husband's his highest is a C, although he has a CDI of all three. He has 3 above the midline. And these are the folks who have questions, and they're going to ask why. And sometimes you're going to want to scream. But that's how they process. And S's and C's are slower processors. And D's and I's, we process fast. Adrienne, we can spot these different styles. So you don't even have to take an assessment to understand who you're working with. If you see fast talkers, fast movers, you're likely dealing with D's and I's. So you can kind of separate even that. And S's and C's, they're a little bit slower. They're a little bit more soft-spoken, a little bit more reserved, if you will.
Yes.
And that's just a starter framework. That's just the beginning of that DISC framework to kind of, okay, so we have 4 different styles, more or less, that most of us can fall into 1 and perhaps 2. In some cases, like my husband, you might have 3 that are pronounced in you.
Yes.
But it gives us a place to start. It gives us a place.
That's a great overview. And I have to tell you, there's something that I've always remembered from your training, because you like you said, you weren't really feeling the I thing, And as I recall, you had said, well, man, as an I, or someone, I don't know if someone said it to you or what, but it was like, well, as an I, you have to be the center of attention. And it was like, no, you don't have to be. You can be. You can be. And I love that. That's your natural, the whole thing about this is that what you said, I tell D's, well, don't leave people on the side of the road, or don't be a doormat if you're an S and all that, because some people will say, well, that's just who I am. I just run over people. What do you say to that?
That's a dangerous statement. That is, if you are the person or someone saying that's just who I am, that is a great starting point, because we're so much more than that. And we should value people that we want to be so much more than that. As a matter of fact, knowing, like Adrienne, if you were a D today or an S or a C, and I'm coming in here with my I self,
Yes.
The best thing that I can do is I can adapt and adjust. That's the second reason why DISC is so important.
Yes.
Because I want, if I'm going to go from communicator to connector, I
Yes.
want to adapt to the person that I'm connecting with, to their style. That's where I build relatability and influence.
That is so beautiful, because that's exactly what I'm talking about today. There's communication, but communication should be a tool of connecting. And there is a DISC assessment, because there are people who they just want, well, where am I? What am I, DISC or whatever? And like you said, there's a blend, but we have a natural bent, right? And so people are like, where am I? But it is, you have to know yourself. But what about the other person? I have heard of DISC, Regina, transforming classrooms, transforming marriages, transforming people's relationship with their children. I heard someone say before that they have this teenager and it's always like, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Or a teacher who sees that and views that as just utter disrespect, when it's not necessarily so, but that's how I communicate. So I've got to meet you where you are.
That's it. That's the whole thing. And when you said how it's transformed lives and marriages and relationships, I have story after story. I gave a DISC presentation at a KW office, and a gal comes up to me and says, "Can I purchase an assessment?" I said, "Absolutely." Purchased an assessment, sent it to her. It's all online. When she was completed it, she looked at my calendar. We made a debrief appointment, and she's a C personality. C's aren't normally the touchy-feely types. These are the number crunchers, the people that love data and spreadsheets. And by the end, she was in tears, because the DISC assessment, she understood why it was so hard for her to do her professional posting on Facebook. It had to be perfect and it had to be right, or she couldn't post it. She hadn't posted in 3 months. And then she discovered that the thing she was having with her kids is because her daughter was an I and her son was an S. And why she was having trouble communicating with them. Her son, this is just beautiful. Her son had said, "Mom, can you cut my hair for Easter?" And she said, I don't know if I want to cut your hair. And the children are very encouraging because they're I's and S's. And she's this perfectionist C. And she said, okay. And she cut it. And she was so unhappy with the job she did. And the son, meanwhile, this beautiful S child is, "Mom, it's good. I love it." And the daughter's like, "Yeah, Mom, you did it." The daughter's an I. And all she could see was the mistake of that. And she's telling me the story. And we're talking through how the three of them have these different styles. And she just starts crying. And she's like, my ex-husband's a D. So that even explains that. And we had a good laugh kind of at the end.
Absolutely.
It transformed the way she saw her children.
Yeah.
It transformed it.
Yes. And if anyone is thinking, is it really all that? I have to say, it really has the potential to be all that when you begin to think, Regina, in DISC. You really do.
All the time. When you understand this and you start to live it and breathe it, it becomes so easy to apply. And I tell everybody, DISC is why. Now, you and I have been on personal growth paths to get to John Maxwell and beyond. And so we're already students of personal growth. But I have to say that it was DISC that when it first hit me, oh, I don't have to be offended by anyone. That's my greatest, biggest, best aha I've ever had in my life. And it came out of my study of DISC. And I thought to myself one day, people aren't acting against me. They're acting for themselves.
Wow. Come on.
To be offended. And when people bump up against, when people like us, I's or S's, they bump up against the C type, that's a business C. They're data, they're numbers driven. And they ask a lot of why questions. People can be, and C's, they have to watch out for being considered to be cold or uncaring. And they're not like that at all.
Right.
And it's very easy to misconstrue that. And then for I's or S's to kind of be offended. Oh, they weren't very sweet. Oh, they weren't very nice. I have a girlfriend. She worked in a guidance counselor's office at a university. And one day the supervisor comes in her office and says, everybody thinks you're mad all the time. And because she was the only C in a department full of I's and S's. And she just started sobbing. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I love everybody I work with. I had no idea." And they said, when you talk, it's short. When you write emails, you're kind of short. So she said, I had to kind of fluff up my personality in my emails.
Yes. Right, because it is about connecting with other people. Do you know one of my best friends, Christy, she told me once, whenever I'm super preparing for a disc workshop or training, our communication is better because it brings it back to mind, and I'm more sensitive, not just to how I function, but how the other person functions. And we have to be reminded because we're vessels and we leak.
That is so good. And I remember my husband, because when I started studying DISC, we talked about this stuff all the time because he was interested. And the beginning of our marriage, I thought, why does it take this man so long to answer a question? What's happening? I thought he was doing it to me on purpose. And he thought that I was just out of my mind sometimes because I could move very quickly and I could make decisions very quickly. And so we're at the furniture store, we're pulling into the parking lot. I'm out of the car. I bought 3 items before he's in the door. And he's like, what's happening? I'm like, oh, I bought 3 things. And now we look back and we laugh about that. And I know that he is a slower processor. So it doesn't bug me. It hasn't bugged me in ages that it takes my husband longer to offer a response, to answer a question. I'm not bothered by it at all anymore because he is working through his own personality, has God-given natural wiring, as am I, as are you. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And just as it's beautiful in your home, I know in the business world, employers, when they learn this, they realize you have those C's in there. They need time to process. You come in, you just want an answer. Give them some time to think, to process.
You said gold right there because I worked with a computer software company. I did a half-day workshop. They came to Atlanta to one of the resorts, Stone Mountain, beautiful place, did a half-day workshop. The leadership, D's and I's. So you had these 3 people, they're DI, ID personalities. The rest of the team were C's and S's. They have leadership calls on Monday mornings, and then they were a global company. So they have these leadership calls, and this DI manager would say, anything else? And they would be thinking, and all the time she thought they never had anything to add.
Had no time, right?
I was out in the workshop. When I talked about how S's and C's are slower to process, somebody raised their hand and I said, oh, yes, please. And he said, this is why on those calls, I don't ever contribute. I can't answer as fast as you need me to. And I was like, this is what it's about in this moment. Because he said, I can't answer that fast. And then other people were like, that's me. That's me. I look at data and I'm thoughtful and you want a fast answer and I can't do it. And the management, the leader of that, she had no idea. She felt incredibly bad because she had no idea. She thought everybody was like her.
Right.
And put them on the spot. S's and C's by and large cannot be put on the spot like that. And in such a moment, I had to hold back the tears as this team, they were working through that. It was awesome. It was
wow. I'm feeling such conviction because I will say, are you listening? Because I didn't get the answer when I wanted it to get the answer, and I still do it. And I'm reminded of it right now. I don't want to belabor it. We got so many stories, but one thing I even heard is the way a business sets up offices when they understand DISC, because you get, for example, your C may come in early because they want to get some things done and analyze some things, and the other people are coming through, and then you're at the front of the office. So now you've got to say hello and stop what you're doing to talk to these people who are coming in. Your eye enjoys that. Put your eye in the front of the office to greet the people coming in so the other people can do what they came in early to do. That's so simple, but wow, what a difference.
And a lot of leaders, a lot of people in those positions, Adrienne, if they don't know DISC or they don't understand that there might be something to all this, people just end up wherever. And it's a hardship if you're a C and maybe you're in your office or your cubicle, however that it's laid out, and you're really focused. And these people are chattering around you, or they can walk right up to you and start talking.
Yes.
And that is just a recipe for disaster and misunderstanding. And most people do not mean harm. It's just they don't know what they don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And that's why I wanted you here. There's so much to it. It's a quick hit.
About this, Adrienne.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a quick hit, but Regina, there are assessments that can be taken. There are things that you do. How would people who want to know more, who want to follow you even, because like I said, you are the communications expert. You're in this, you're in the thick of this, you're doing this on a regular basis. How do people get get connected deeper with what you do and how to follow what you do?
I think that most people, I would recommend everybody just start with a DISC assessment. That's a great starting point. And please don't think we're doing an assessment to put you in a box. We're not at all. That's right. One of the first things, Adrienne, I know you talk about this when you do your workshops. I even tell people, this is not what this is at all. We're just identifying your natural wiring, some patterns of behavior that are there.
Yes.
And that is a great starting point for everything else. Then we can talk about your motivations, your strengths, your weaknesses, or challenges. It's a great conversation starter. And even though we don't put people in a box, I've never had anyone who didn't say, wow, most of this assessment is me. I've never not had it. And I use 3 different types of DISC assessments. They all have their own independent value. And I've never had someone say, oh my God, this is so unlike me. Most people say, oh, wow. How did you
do that? How did you? Yes, I've seen that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I start with an assessment. And if you follow me on social media, on Facebook, I'm Regina Scott Bryan. I'm on Instagram, Regina Bryan. TikTok, Regina Bryan, and my website is my name, Regina Bryan. So it's pretty easy to find me from my website. You can purchase an assessment. It comes with a one-on-one debrief that I would do with you. So you're not just getting the assessment. Most people get an assessment, they're going to stick it in the drawer.
Yeah.
The way that we've been trained, fortunately, is we walk you through the assessment. So we give you some insights and help you talk about next steps.
That's right. Absolutely. And I'm going to be sure to put that information, that contact information in the show notes so that people can follow up. And here's my thing, follow up quickly, because I know people who are listening, something's jumping on the inside and saying, yes, yes. And we need to act accordingly because, we throw things away. But this is good stuff. And I am so thankful to have your expertise here on the show. And thank you for sharing so much of yourself and all that you do, Regina.
It was my pleasure, Adrienne. We got to have a part 2 or something because you and I both have 1 million more DISC stories. And so this was the tip of the iceberg, everybody.
It was.
This really was. Yeah. So thank you.
Much more. Thank you. All right, Regina. Thanks again. God bless you abundantly.
Thanks, Adrienne.
All right. Bye-bye. I enjoyed that so much. And I hope you got a whole lot out of that. Regina Bryan is amazing. And when she does a workshop, like she said, she brings the energy and she knows her stuff. She's an award winner, okay? In life, in business, she's just amazing. So I'm so glad that you tuned in. And I hope that you will check out the show notes and be sure to follow up. She does DISC trainings. There's a DISC assessment that you can get so that you can know are you a D, are you an I, or an S, or you're C. And it's so fascinating. But again, that's the beginning. But then it enables you to be able to communicate with other people where they are, not just where you are, but to take that and branch out and be able to connect to people where they are. And communication is so very vital. It is the area employers are looking for. It's the area that people in churches are looking for. It's the area that marriages want to shore up. It is absolutely vital. And DISC is one method of really going above and beyond in communication and therefore in connection. So she does DISC training. I've done DISC training since the surgery over a year ago, almost a year and a half ago now. I have not been totally immersed into it, but I offer that as well. But I'm telling you right now, don't wait for me. Just reach out to Regina and see what she has to offer. Follow her on social media. She does a lot of other things. So she's got videos that she's putting out, and she's all about personal growth, all about leadership, and of course, all about communication. So I want to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? Where do you stand on communication? What do you know about DISC, or what do you want to know? You can always email at adriennerosscom@gmail.com. adriennerosscom, that's C-O-M, @gmail.com. But also on YouTube. Leave a comment there on YouTube, and don't forget, please, to subscribe and to like. Okay, those things really do matter. Okay, let's break the algorithm. All right, so subscribe, leave a comment, and also if you are on a major podcast platform, if that's where you engage, then I would love for you to leave a rating and a review, and also to subscribe. And don't forget the BMG Network. That is the bmgnetwork.com. Check that out also, and check out the other podcasters there. We are engaging, enlightening, informative, and even entertaining. The bmgnetwork.com. And of course, my Substack. I don't just talk, I also write. And adrienneross.substack.com is a great place to subscribe. And not only are you able to follow my writing and follow the podcast, but you're also able to support me in what I'm doing, even financially, because there are paid subscriptions, which are incredibly inexpensive. $50 a year, $5 a month, $100 if you want the gold subscription, which comes with some perks. But I think this is worth $5. We're really, really in the thick of things. And whether it's the message through podcasting or the message through writing, I would appreciate your support. So thank you for that. And before I let you go, I have to remind you about We the People. I want you to be informed about We the People, We the People of Missouri.org. Don't forget, the next meeting is on August 29th. That's the next meeting. It's 5 o'clock at Delmonico's. The guest is Stacy Shore. She's got some really interesting things, it seems, to talk about concerning education. And we know it's vital that we are aware of what's going on with our children. God willing, I will be there at Delmonico's at 5 o'clock in Jackson, Missouri. You local folks know where that is. I'm intending to be there, and I would love for you to say hello before you leave after we enjoy the presentation of We the People. All right? God bless you abundantly. I'll catch you on the next episode.